Hello again, parents and students. It's Mrs. Morehouse. I wanted to show you a little bit of fraction practice, and we're going to work on adding, subtracting, and let me check my camera, and multiplying fractions. Unfortunately, the adding and subtracting of fractions has not changed much since we were in school. And it's kind of frustrating because the adding and subtracting of the fractions is actually hard. And the multiplying of fractions is quite easy in fourth grade. Actually, it's so much easier than adding and subtracting, no matter what grade you're in. So let's start off with an adding one. We can add mixed fractions with common denominators and uncommon denominators. So just know that you need the same denominator in order to add or subtract. If the denominators are the same the moment that you do a problem, all you have to do is add. So let's say we have 1 1/5 plus 1 3/5. First thing you're supposed to do is check the denominators. If they're the same, you're good to go. So I'm going to add my whole numbers first. 1 plus 1 is 2. Add my numerators. 1 plus 3 is 4. And my denominator stays the same. And I try and explain this to kids, like if you had a pie and you split it into 5 pieces and one person, well, I guess we have 3 pies, don't we? But, one person ate a whole pie and 1 slice. One person ate 1 whole pie and 3 slices. And if a student wants to add these, ask them, did the story say that we were taking a knife and cutting those slices in half to make tenths? No, we didn't. There's still 5 slices of pie in each of the pies. So that's a good way that I try and explain it to students. So now let's say that we are adding a fraction with uncommon denominators. So I'm going to do 1 1/5 plus 1 3/10. So students need to recognize the relationship between these two numbers, and the relationship is that 2 5s make a 10. So I can rewrite this, and what I have to do, let me make sure you can still see. I have to multiply the bottom by 2 and the top by 2. So let me rewrite this. I still have my 1 whole. 1 times 2 is 2. 5 times 2 is 10. Now, the other one is just fine. The other fraction is just fine. It's already in tenths, so I just rewrite it. And I got my whole numbers. 1 plus 1 is 2. 3 plus 2 is 5. My denominator is tenths. And the students that recognize that 5 tenths is 1 1/2, they can always go like that. Now, every once in a while, it doesn't happen very often in fourth grade, but every once in a while, you will get 2 denominators that actually do not have a direct relationship, but they might have a connection with another number. So if I said, I'm going to pick a different whole number, 3 2/3 plus 2 1/12. So, I guess that's kind of similar to the last one. Let me pick, I'm going to change this. I'm so sorry. I don't want to do 12ths because that's just 3 times 4, and I could just do the same thing like I did up here. So I'm going to change this to a 5. There. Now I cannot multiply a 3 by anything to get to 5. So I have to start thinking, okay, 3 times 2 is 6. No, that's not going to work. Oh, let's think of the 5. 5 times 2 is 10. No, 3 can't go into 10 evenly. Oh, what about 3 times 5? It's 15. That would work. Okay, so my whole number stays the same. I want to convert my fraction into 15ths. So I ask myself, 3 times what is 15? It's 5. So I'm going to multiply the top and bottom by 5. 2 times 5 is 10. And I have to change this one too. So it's 2. I want to convert it into 15ths. 5 goes into 15 3 times, so I multiply the bottom by 3 and the top by 3. 1 times 3 is 3. Check your work, make sure you're okay. 15 15ths and 15ths. 3 plus 2 is 5. 10 plus 3 is 13. And my 15ths stay the same. Now, subtraction works the same exact way. The only one thing that is really frustrating about subtracting is if you have to borrow in subtracting. So I'm going to show you one of those problems. This was addition. I'm going to show you some subtraction. And then the multiplication is crazy simple compared to this. So subtraction works the same way, just remember that, except if you have to borrow. So my problem is going to be 4 1/4 minus 1 5/8. So this is going to require some work. 1, my denominators aren't the same, so I have to convert those. But I see there's a relationship here because 2 4s make an 8. So I'm going to rewrite my whole number. I want my fraction to be in 8ths. 4 times 2 is 8. So I multiply 2, multiplied by 2. 1 times 2 is 2. And this is an equivalent fraction now to 1/4. This is going to stay the same. It's already in 8ths. So I do my subtraction, minus 1 5/8. Just like in regular subtraction problems, I cannot do 2 minus 5. 2 is too small to take 5. So what I tell students is I always ask them, well, what's our denominator? It's out of 8. So what can I put up here to make one whole? And the kids have gotten really good at telling me, oh, 8/8 equals one whole. If we're working in fifths, they have all started to kind of figure out 5/5 is equal to one whole. 3/3 is equal to one whole. 10/10 is equal to one whole. So what you need to do is you take one of your whole numbers out. So I take out a whole number. And what was my whole number if I converted it into 8ths? It's 8/8. So all I need to do is add these two. So my new number is 3. Let me scoot my paper over a tiny bit. There we go. 3, 8 plus 2 in my numerators is 10/8. Minus 1 5/8. So 3 minus 1 is 2. I'm subtracting my whole numbers. 10 minus 5 is 5, and my denominator stays the same. So that's the hardest piece right there. It's borrowing using fractions. Let me see if I can get the whole thing on there. Yeah, almost. I'm sorry. I guess you can do this in slow motion if you want to see it all over again. Okay, last but definitely not least is the multiplication. In 4th grade, we're simply multiplying a fraction with a whole number. We're not doing multiplication of fractions with fractions. So I told the students though, like, holy cow, it's so much easier. So let's say we have 7/8 times 2. All you do is multiply your numerator by your whole number. So 7 times 2 is 14, and you leave the denominator the same. And in 4th grade, this is a fine answer. But if students wanted to challenge themselves, it would be 1 and 6/8, which would also equal 1 and 3/4. Because you can divide both of these by 2. And that's it. Like that's it. The denominator stays the same. You multiply your numerator by your whole number. So that's just crazy to me. These poor 4th graders are trying to figure out the craziness of adding and subtracting, and we finally get to multiplication, which multiplication is much harder than adding. And here we go. It's like way more simple. So if you want your students to practice this, you can start out with 2 numbers that have the same denominator. You do not need to use whole numbers. Then you can start picking 2 different denominators, but they have a very close connection. And then you can kind of try what I did here, where there's like this outside number that they're connected to, and do that. If you want to do this multiplication and they got it really well, you could. I mean, just to give them a challenge, you could totally give them 2 fractions. And all you have to do is multiply the numerator straight across and the denominator straight across. So 3 times 2 is 6, and 7 times 4 is 28. But then maybe you challenge them to divide further. So if you divided the top by 2 and the bottom by 2, you would get 3/14, and that would also be a correct answer. Please let me know if I made other mistakes that I didn't catch. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.